I spent 6 months building my exit while my husband slept next to me every night. He didn't notice. That's the part I still find difficult to explain to people. Not because I'm surprised. I understand now that he hadn't been paying attention to me for years, but because 6 months is a long time to share a bed with someone and not notice that they're leaving. It started the evening I overheard a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. I'd come downstairs for a glass of water at 11:30 on a Tuesday. Tom was in the living room with the door almost closed, speaking quietly. I heard my name once, then a laugh I didn't recognize him making. Soft and private, the kind of laugh you make when you're comfortable with someone in a way you're not comfortable with your wife. I went back upstairs. I lay next to him when he came to bed 20 minutes later, and I looked at the ceiling and I understood, without needing any further evidence, what was happening. I didn't confront him. I want to be clear about that choice, because people always ask. I didn't confront him because I'd watched enough friends go through this to know what confrontation achieves. Denial, followed by minimization, followed by a version of events so carefully managed, you spend the next 2 years not trusting your own memory. I didn't want that. I wanted facts and I wanted options and I wanted time. So I started gathering them. The first thing I did was open a bank account in my own name at a different bank from our joint one. I transferred a small amount each month, nothing that would show as unusual, nothing that disrupted our shared finances, and I left it alone. By month 6, it had enough in it to cover 3 months of rent somewhere modest. The second thing I did was update my CV. I'd been out of full-time work for 4 years. We'd agreed when our daughter was born that I'd step back, and I had. And I'd told myself it was a choice we'd made together. Updating that CV was the first time I understood how much it had cost me. I started applying for jobs in month 2. I was offered one in month 4, senior coordinator at a logistics firm, not what I'd done before, but close enough, and they were willing to work around school hours. I asked them to hold the role for 6 weeks. They said yes. I said nothing to Tom. By month 5, I had a job, a bank account, and a short list of flats within walking distance of my daughter's school. I also had a folder on my laptop, password protected, backed up to a cloud account Tom didn't know existed, containing every piece of financial documentation I thought I might need. Mortgage statements, pension documents, our joint account history, the valuation we'd had done on the house 2 years earlier. My solicitor had told me in our first consultation, which I'd booked during a lunch hour while Tom thought I was at the supermarket, that documentation was everything. I documented everything. I chose a Tuesday to tell him, the same day of the week I'd overheard the phone call, though I didn't tell him that. My daughter was at her grandmother's. I'd made dinner, which felt absurd in retrospect. I'd spent 40 minutes making a chicken dish he liked and then told him our marriage was over, but I wanted the conversation to happen at a table, not in a hallway, not in a bedroom. Sitting down, properly, like adults. He cried. I hadn't expected that. He said he loved me. I told him I knew in the way that you can love someone and still do what he'd been doing, and that it didn't change anything. He asked if there was someone else. There wasn't. There still isn't. That seemed to confuse him more than anything. What I didn't tell him, not that evening, was how long I'd been planning. He found out gradually, over the weeks that followed, as the logistics of separation revealed themselves. The bank account, the job, the flat I'd already viewed twice and put a holding deposit on. Each revelation landed differently. By the end, he had stopped being sad and started being something else entirely. The something else was fury, and I understood it, even if I didn't have much patience for it. He felt ambushed. He said so several times in several different ways. He said I'd been deceptive, that I'd planned against him, that the woman he thought he knew would never have done this. I listened to all of it. I didn't argue. There was nothing to argue about. He was right that I'd planned, and I wasn't ashamed of it. What I didn't say, because it would have been cruel, and because I'd already decided cruelty wasn't something I was willing to add to this, was that he'd had 6 months. 6 months of living next to someone who was leaving, and not once asking the right question. Not once looking at me properly, not once noticing that something had shifted. The divorce took 14 months. It was difficult in the way these things always are. Money, arrangements for our daughter, the question of what to do with a house that neither of us could afford alone. We sold it, split the equity. He moved into a flat on the other side of town. I moved into the flat I'd put the holding deposit on in month 5. My daughter started a new school routine. I started my job on a Monday morning and sat at my desk and felt, for the first time in longer than I could clearly remember, like myself. I'm not going to tell you it was easy. The first year was genuinely hard. The logistics of single parenthood, the financial tightening, the particular loneliness of a Saturday evening when my daughter is at her father's and the flat is quiet and you understand that this is your life now, to build from here. But I built it. I'm still building it. I have a promotion now. I have friends I didn't have before. Real ones, not the couple friends we'd accumulated together who didn't know what to do with a single woman. I have evenings that belong entirely to me. I have a daughter who is happy and settled, and whose parents, despite everything, managed to be in the same room without it being a disaster. I have a life I designed, carefully, quietly, over 6 months, while someone who wasn't paying attention slept in the next room. The planning wasn't deception, it was self-preservation. If you're in a situation where you already know the answer, but you're not ready yet, it's okay to take your time. Just use it well. Has a quiet decision ever changed everything? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more complete stories with no part 2s that never come, follow the page. New story every day.